Welcome home, family. Welcome back to the channel. In case you can't already tell, it's a bit of a wet and windy one today. But I wanted to make sure that I still got out. Oh, a little bit of rain never hurt nobody. What is it? A dear brother of mine says, you know, the skin's waterproof, innit? At what point did we start living where we forgot that fact and we started living as if our skin is not waterproof? Well, yeah, this is the first video I'm recording since the channels went live. So yeah, anyone who's tuned in and checked out the videos, thank you ever so much. Always appreciated, and I hope there was some seeds planted, and yeah, that resonated. If it didn't resonate, hopefully those seeds weren't planted. But yeah, so I think it feels appropriate in this video to to maybe speak on marching forward, regardless of the external circumstances. That feels like a fitting energy to this video. Oh. And yeah, and after I film this, there's a couple of practices that I'm planning on doing. So out in the rain again, because I thought, let's not you know, there's always a reason not to do something. I've realized in my experience, the mind, the way it works, this plane, you know, ego, whatever you want to call it, whatever aspect, you know, you decide to label it, there's certainly a factor within the plane that we experience that requires this pushing forward. Of course, not to the extent that we're getting burnt out and feeling, you know, that our body's in need of a deeper state of rest and recuperation. If that's what the vessel is calling for, then make sure that that's what you're following. But in those times, you know, and I even heard a video, somebody mentioning that before I came out filming this, and yeah, it made me sort of check myself and think, oh, am I trying to push something that I shouldn't be pushing, basically? Should I just be resting? And I thought, you know what, because it's quite early, specifically, you know, with my exercise routine, that it's still early days, that I'm trying to solidify its foundations. And I thought, you know what, it's good for me to check in, tune in, see what the vessel's really feeling. But it came to me that, you know, I think today at least, it's worth pushing on. It's worth pushing on, especially in the time of of building that foundation. I think because the vessel is naturally not going to be as accustomed to this energetic output at first, because it's, you know, it works as creatures of habit and patterns, and you know what I mean. So we're going to be following that, and naturally our bodies won't have the strength to know we can do something until we've done it, you know. And that's I truly believe that, and that's been seen within my experience to be true. So yeah, today it felt worthy to push on. So yeah, I hope if there's any family members out there that are having similar questions like this, that you're able to tune in and make sure that you're getting an honest, authentic answer from yourself, innit? Whether you're in need of that extra bit of rest, or whether you need a bit of fire, and you know what I mean, to push yourself forward, to get out there and do the things, even if your mind's preferring not to, you know what I mean, because it wants to stay within the habit that it's already been created for it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, keep pushing forward, family. And I also feel it relevant in this time to mention that that love is all around, love is ever present. So that field, tuning into that field of omnipotent power and unconditional love, is always freely available, no matter the state or condition in which one perceives themselves in, because this is an absolute state. This is the inherent nature of soul, of innate, and this is encoded within all our DNA. There's not a single, even if it seems otherwise, there's not a single one of us that doesn't have access to this. I truly believe there'll just be certain people that have got more barriers up currently through no fault of their own, through habit and instinct, and yeah, recurring patterns circulating. And I think I've mentioned this in previous videos, but yeah, breaking that cycle, knowing when to break that cycle is it's a crucial aspect, I believe, to this ascension process. So feel for that power, feel for that strength inside, and for the guidance eternally around you. Even if it's seemingly out of shot in a specific moment of time, just know that, like I've said before, that's for due cause, that's for due reason. It's only because your guides feel like you've got this, and this is a step, an initiation in which your singular soul needs to encounter, needs to persevere through in order to reach the states in which it set itself pre-incarnation, I believe. Oh, it is beautiful. And that's the other thing, it's a blessing. I truly feel that this rain is a blessing. You know, I'll say firstly to the vessel, it feels like a blessing from Mother Earth, from Father Sky, in sacred union, when such an act occurs upon our plane. And of course also for Mother Nature and all that which provides us sustenance and nutrition. I'm hoping that even if some of us would prefer there to be a bit more sun at the moment, I'm hoping that nutrition that's, you know, soaking into the ground, and all the food, you know what I mean, soaking up that nutrients, will then be reaping the benefits, you know. So everything happens for due cause. And I think it's important to see it like that, even though, you know, I'll fully admit that there might be outside factors having an impact on the weather that we've been seeing, which is all very, you know, sort of widely known about. But yeah, let's ask the questions of why these things are happening for our greater purpose. I think being a key aspect there. Yeah, remain focused on the positive, on the light of the situation. As much as we may be aware that there may be a certain dark, how shall I word it, a dark influence upon some of these things that may be less desirable to the vessel. But of course, I believe that our soul is inherently pure. This is God-given nature to be in a state of acceptance and compassion for self and all, realizing, of course, that all is self and self is all. So yeah, I hope, family, you've been tuning into your medicine, whatever your medicine for the moment has been calling to you through your spirit, the soul that is you, beyond the veil, in your form of completion and totality. I hope you're tuning in and resonating with the guidance, and if you're not, then I hope you've got an open and willing heart to sit and listen and see what comes about when we hold the space for deeper understanding and inner standing to take place. Oh, what a beautiful world. What a beautiful world we live in. I know it doesn't matter what colour the skies are. You know, I'll be honest, I hold my hands up, and I do prefer blue skies personally. I do think, I prefer the blue to grey, but one can't deny that there is something ever sacred and ever so special about the continuous fluctuation of the picture presenting around us, you know, just as a reflection of the internal as well. And I believe it helps to give us balance overall, although, you know, day by day it might not appear as such. Overall, I believe there's a reason for the cycles. We wouldn't have chosen for there to be cycles, you know what I mean? Otherwise. So I believe that these cycles, they enhance our growth. Just like the negative patterns that we feel aren't serving our higher selves. Ultimately, in a sense, they are serving our higher self because they're making themselves known within our awareness that something needs to change. And that's a gift in itself, you know, especially when we're able to listen, integrate that message. Woo! And when we start to see the positive effects ripple out into other factors of our lives, then yeah, that's truly special. That's truly special. And that's, personally, I find there's no need to get angry at that. Getting angry at that, now that's not what's serving my higher self. Until I clock, of course, that anger is not necessary, and I let myself be freed of it. And then I can look back and go, oh, in hindsight, I suppose even that anger serving my higher self. You know, so it's all about working with the energies, keeping it current, keeping it flowing, and just ultimately staying true to who you are, with whatever message is in your heart, feeling that it needs to be expressed in whichever moment. We are divinity ever expressing itself in totality, in all the many facets, shapes and forms that the one can take, you know. Ever held within the zero, the unconditional, omnipotent love that is our Holy Mother. I truly believe. I truly believe. All these animals seeming to be unaffected by the weather conditions surrounding me as well. I'm reminded of we were living for thousands of years where we wouldn't have been batting an eyelid. Don't get me wrong, you know, things like the fact that my toes are wet and that there's I got soggy socks. But of course, thousands of years ago, we wouldn't have had the expectation to have dry toes. Do you know what I mean? So, and we wouldn't be walking in the shoes. So ultimately, my foot would just be on the wet grass as naturally it should be. And notice therefore how there is a bit of a knock-on effect as well, how this expectation, this standard in this example of having dry feet is not in alignment with how nature naturally is, with how Mother Gaia has been treating her children for thousands of years. So I believe it's worth being humbled. Allow ourselves to be humbled by this. This is, I don't think I've mentioned this in the video actually, but yeah, so in my experience, the seeking to be humble, just in my experience, I'm really curious of what, you know, the family, what your thoughts are on this. To seek a state of humility, but why would we ever need the label of humble? I believe that there's an aspect of self trying to prove something onto self and others, you know, when we're doing this, when we seek the title of being humble, you know. Whereas in my experience, what I've realized is if we seek to be humbled, you know what I mean, by the experiences we go through in life, then this is ultimately how we grow a whole lot more. A whole lot more. But when we allow ourselves to be humbled, this is when we truly learn the most, because, you know, let's face it, I believe we are reclaiming our inherent master nature, but there's something about, we are not just the masters, but also the students. And that's why I believe the archetype of the master student, I believe to be a fundamental one in this process that we're going through together and collectively. So remain focused on this, on the fact that there'll be moments where we'll take the role of the teacher and somebody we're speaking to will take the role of the student. And this is an ever important dynamic which does enable maximum growth, I believe. We just have to remember that it goes around, that vice versa. I believe, yeah, for whatever it's worth, personally I believe there's no like true master who only teaches. I don't believe it, oh yeah, in my opinion anyway, in my humble opinion, in my humble opinion, I believe that to truly be a master, one has to have mastered being the student, you know, and to be able to play between these roles, because ultimately we want our family to grow. Like, that's why we're here. Ascension is a collective matter. So therefore, being able to step into the student role around our fellow siblings, to be able to learn from them and allow them to play the teacher role, I think is growing ever more important in my experience, as I'm navigating these changes that, you know, navigating these changes that we're all going through. I believe, keeping that balance, keeping that sovereignty, and keeping that focus on self, like how I'm behaving, how I'm holding myself in the world around me, as opposed to just staying in a state of judgment, which I believe sometimes when we're just observing things, it can be a bit of a slippery slope. You know, when we say we take a step back and we just, there's no point in getting angry, it's just someone's ego, and that fact is great. It's just all about the energy. It's all about the energy. We'll flow into this one. So I believe that spells and the way that magic works in terms of in terms of the art form sort of thing of that, you know, has been taking place for thousands of years upon this plane, upon this earth. I believe it ever crucial to remain grounded in our state, within our intended state of intention, I suppose. When we cast spells, so as I'm sure you've been told, anyone who's speaking words through conversation, you know what I mean, it's as simple as a conversation. Whether we like it or not, to a certain extent, we are casting spells, you know, upon ourselves and the people around us. So that's why I believe there's a lot of ancient wisdom schools that would preach the message to be impeccable with your word. And I believe that, you know, your word is bond. And I believe that there's a strong link here with how magic operates and works upon this plane. And I feel that something that's so freeing that I found from this is you sort of realise that the people who, you know, the powers that be, do you know what I mean? Basically, there's no power there. There's no power there because they haven't got a heart-based intention at the centre of whatever they're trying to manipulate, you know? So therefore, we needn't worry about it, in my opinion, personally. I believe there's always going to be practical aspects of certain forces' operations that is going to be more useful to know. So we practically, physically know how to navigate upon this earth, do you know what I mean, whilst those things are still taking place. However, in terms of seeing these spells and thinking, like, this is what they're doing, this is the spell they're casting, I feel it ever important to remind us just to not give it the weight. Don't give it the belief, because we are creators, and if we imbue that belief, it really does heighten the chance of it happening. And I think, you know, which is ironic, isn't it? Because there's a lot of us, most people who are believing all those things and spreading that word, obviously, you know what I mean, is seeing it for the darkness that it is. And we need to remember that there is an element of darkness which is illusion. And we'll see if I can bring this through, but the way that shadows work, you know, we are light, and so our light bodies, and this physical vessel is just a compressed version of that light. So therefore it holds a higher density, it's more dense, yeah? And then and how with the shadows are only brought about through this intense light being compressed into a deeper density. And then therefore, now when light hits us, it's, instead of it going straight through us like it would if we're in soul, you know, true spirit form, it casts a shadow. And how I just think this is such a beautiful analogy of when we realise that, of course, the obvious being that the shadow is only but ourself, and then there's the whole thing that when you're a child and you first see a shadow and you're like, what's that? You know what I mean? You think it's got a thing of its own. Do you know what I mean? It's exactly the same thing. But that day we realised, like, whoa, you know, it's like looking in the mirror or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And you realise it's moving, it's you. It's merely your reflection. So I think it's ever important to remember this. Ever important to remember this. And one of the most beautiful reasons why I always you know, with this analogy as well, please, my family, decide to take it as deep as we can, just because when we truly acknowledge the fact that, okay, so it's just light and darkness, light and shadow, and then you realize that light can shine away any shadow merely by its being. It doesn't have to set an intention or do anything. Naturally, by being light, shadows dissipate. Does that make, I'm hoping that makes sense. Because it's little things like this that when we just understand how reality works, how reality operates and functions upon this plane, then we realise, just like when we were a child scared of our own shadow, there was nothing to be afraid of. Do you know what I mean? Once we've shone that light, once we've dissipated shadows. Yeah, I think that's an important message that, spontaneously Spirit decided to add on to the end of this video. We'll stop it there so it doesn't carry on for too long. Yeah, if people do have a preference about length of videos, I'm open to that as well. I'm sort of feeling like between like 10 and 20 minutes kind of works best. If people would want longer ones, you know, feel free to mention that. But I kind of, the way I see things operating at the moment, it kind of feels like, 10-20 minutes is kind of it's just where our attention span is decreasing, I think, and I just want everything to be as applicable to all. Do you know what I mean? That's what it's got to be about. That's what it's got to be about, is reaching as many open hearts, as many willing ears as we possibly can, and returning this beautiful plane to the heaven that it once was, and that we chose to descend from, and to be able to experience a hellish nature in the name of our learning, understanding, and ultimately growth. So yeah, I hope everyone's feeling good. Hope everyone's grounded and following their practices, and just being able to tune into self, and give our vessels the beautiful love that they deserve. It truly is an honor to be able to speak on these things, and for anyone, any willing hearts who do decide to check it out. So yeah, stay true to who you are, family. Keep shining. The brighter the better. Even when the clouds are there, we know the sun's on the other side. Omnipotent in its power, never fluctuating in its radiance. Come on, come on. Shiniza Swaharimu Shaya Baloosh.